Everyone back with another Neon Genesis Evangelion review. This time we're going to episode 15. Now that we've crossed the halfway point, we've gotten past the obligatory recap, half an episode I believe it was only. We're going to this episode, which is going to be actually a pretty tamed episode because there's no angels really. I say really because we'll get to that when we get to it. But there is no angel fighting in this episode, unfortunately. So a lot of it's more drama, exposition, not really exposition, but characters explaining where they've been for a lapsed amount of times, because you have to remember, a lot of these characters have not seen each other in a good amount of time. So that's kind of the first part of this episode. Episode is kind of really tame. It's more or less a setup about where everyone's going. We get a little talk in the helicopter with Fuyutsuki and Gendo talking about... This is where it gets kind of confusing because the council kind of goes away and Seele ends up being the main villains, or the head honchos. And it's never really clearly plotted out what was the difference and where does Seele come in. I will say this, we also are introduced at the beginning about what Kaji is doing. While we're not sure, we know he works for Nerve, but he has been seeing things that are a little bit unsavory, if you will. So that's kind of where the start of the first half episode is, and it's going to be called Lies in Silence. So we learn about that corporation. We also kind of figure out that Kaji is kind of playing double roles in this universe, which is kind of interesting. A lot of this is just people talking about their interactions and what's going on with everyone else's character. We're introduced to the fact that Ritsuko and Masato have to go to a wedding, and they complain about how they're going broke buying dresses because everyone is getting married but them. We also get a kind of interesting scene with Shinji and Rei, where they have a conversation where Shinji tells Rei something interesting when they were in school, basically cleaning up. Now he tells her that you rung up that towel like a mother. Once again, this show kind of has no subtlety, but a lot of foreshadowing, because in a couple of episodes when we reach the birth of Nerve, you kind of understand what was going on. But basically Shinji says that to Rei. Rei goes, you make me feel uncomfortable. And then it ends. In a subplot, Asuka gets set up with a date, and Masato and Ritsuko go to the wedding. They hang out, they talk, Kaji gets there. In between, it's just a lot of banter between characters. The episode actually ends with a scene where Gendo and Shinji are at Yui Ikari, Shinji's mom, Gendo's wife, grave. And they speak to each other and basically give the audience information that this is the first time Shinji's been here in 3 years. And that's kind of where the episode ends. There's not a lot of... There's no action, because there's no angel fights. It's just kind of people talking about where they were and things like that. The second episode is kind of more the same, but we get a little bit more information. And like everything Evangelion, it ends on a cliffhanger where you go, what? But anyway, okay, this is a mouthful. Let me try to get this out the way. The second part of this episode is called "These Women Long for the Touch of Others' Lips and Thus Invite Their Kisses." Yeah, that's a lot to say. Some of these titles can go on very long. Um, yeah, but they're also meaningful. We find out Shinji still is playing the cello. His reasonings for doing it is just because. Probably the most interesting part of this episode is everything that has to do with Kaji, Ritsuko, and Masato. Basically, it's hard to tell whether if they're at the reception for the wedding or if they just went out to go drink at a club. But basically, Masato's getting hammered. Kaji is talking to Ritsuko while Masato's in the restroom, and they have kind of an interesting exchange about, these are all characters who haven't seen each other in years, but they've all come from the same place, more or less. There's a great line reading where Ritsuko goes, homeocensus or something like that, and Masato, drunk off her ass, goes, homeo what? And Ritsuko just has to explain the theory to her. Ritsuko leaves them because she has to go to work. Masato and Kaji continue drinking. This leads to kind of an interesting, very interesting conversation. Okay, for those of you who are too young to drink, good for you. There's a long walk between Ritsuko and Masato where Masato starts talking. I'm not gonna lie, this is a very true to life thing, and it's well written. Even if the original language was in Japanese, it was translated very well, or at least it's a very believable conversation that two people would have. Masato gets totally drunk on her ass, throws up in an alley, and has to be carried by Kaji for a while. I'm not going to spoil what the conversation was about, but I would definitely say it's an important conversation. And once again, for those of you who have drunk before and have had something out of place while drinking, you'll kind of appreciate what's going on in this scene. It is a really well written, it's a really well performed scene. I don't really go into the voice actors, but Alison Keys as Masato does a really bang up job, and her delivery is really good, and she's really believable when she talks about being drunk and spilling out her heart. There's a really weird scene near the end where Asuka talks to Shinji and she tells him, let's kiss. Kind of comes out of nowhere, and I never understood what the purpose of it was, because Asuka kind of dislikes Shinji because Shinji is kind of stealing her spotlight. So it's kind of an out of place thing. It is kind of funny tonally. So I will give it that. The episode ends on a very weird note as we go into Nerve and we see not only Central Dogma, but we see Terminal Dogma. In Terminal Dogma, it's the day after they've been drinking, so Masato happens to catch Kaji down there. And there are signs that say trespassers will be shot on sight. No one is allowed here. And the episode ends with Kaji telling Masato, everyone's been lying to you. And then he unveils this. So we find out what the first angel looks like. What was Rey doing with the Lance of Longinus after the last episode? And we see a lot of people being shed into or getting into the know of what's going on. While not the most exciting episodes, once again, it is a character building episode and it works really well. And gives us, like all episodes, really foreshadowing for stuff that's going to come in the future, but also leaving us going, does anyone really know what's going on around here? So that's pretty much it for episode 15. I will say this, while not being an action heavy episode, it does fly by real fast because the characters are explaining to each other how they got there, but it's not exposition because they don't know how they got there and the time that's gone on. And it's kind of one of those things where people reminisce a lot, especially since half the episode is with a bunch of people who've been drinking, Ritsuko Kaji and Masato. So it kind of makes sense. The dialogue really works in this setting, so there's that. I will say this, from here on out it gets weird. So that's it for today. Also, I just want to give a shout out and let everyone know that Jeff will not be doing the Sonic reviews on this channel anymore. In the comment link, I'm going to be putting up a link to his page, so if you're a Sonic fan, you want to see what he's doing, you know, I'm all about helping the little man, especially when the little man's my son. So it'll be there in the comment section, hopefully either in this episode or the next episode. So if you like Sonic video game reviews, video game playthroughs, things like that, you can check his stuff out. Until next time though, later.